June 20th, 1943, Western Pacific Ocean, just after dawn. High above a scattered field of white cloud, the sea below looks calm, almost harmless. Sunlight flashes off the canopies of Japanese fighters as they climb in loose formation, engines humming smoothly, propellers biting into the thin morning air. Lieutenant Saburo Tanaka, Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service, tightens his gloved hand on the control stick of his Mitsubishi A6M Zero. He is 24 years old, already a veteran of dozens of combat missions. China, Pearl Harbor. Aftermath, Guadalcanal, he has survived where many of his classmates have not. The Zero responds like an extension of his body light, obedient, graceful. At altitude, this is where it dominates. This is where it always has. Tanaka scans the sky ahead. The radio crackles with routine chatter fuel checks. Altitude calls, quiet confidence. American fighters have been reported in the area, but that is nothing new. Wildcats maybe. Heavy, slow, easy to outturn. Dangerous only if mishandled. Then someone speaks. Enemy aircraft. 12 o'clock, low. Tanaka leans forward, eyes narrowing. At first, he sees nothing, just cloud glare and distant haze. Then shapes emerge. Dark specks rising from below, climbing fast. Too fast. They are not diving. They are climbing. Tanaka frowns. Wildcats do not climb like that. The specks grow larger. He counts them automatically. 4, no 6. No external fuel tanks. Broad wings. Thick fuselages. They look wrong. Are those Zeros? A voice asks over the radio. No, another pilot answers. American markings. Tanaka adjusts his trim and rolls slightly left to get a better angle. The enemy aircraft are coming up beneath them. Noses pitched high. Engines roaring with a deep, aggressive sound, unlike the thinner whine of Japanese engines. They are climbing almost vertically. This is impossible, someone mutters. The lead American fighter crests their altitude, levels out, and keeps climbing. Tanaka's breath catches. The Zero was built for this moment. Light structure. Minimal armor. No self-sealing fuel tanks. Every gram shaved away to give it unmatched climb and maneuverability. For nearly 2 years, Japanese pilots have relied on that advantage. They could outturn, outclimb, outfight anything the Americans put into the sky. But the aircraft rising toward them now does not behave like anything they have seen before. They're climbing like Zeros, Tanaka says, unable to stop himself. The radio erupts. How can that be? They're heavier than Wildcats. New fighter, watch out. The American planes slide into position with alarming ease. Their wings are broad and squared off. Their nose is blunt and powerful. The sun glints off dark blue paint and white star insignia. 6.50 caliber. Machine guns sit hidden in each wing, unseen but very real. Tanaka banks hard, instinctively preparing for a turning fight. That is where he expects to win. That is where the Zero always wins. The American pilot does not turn. Instead, the fighter surges forward, nose down just enough to gain speed, then snaps upward again in a steep climb, bleeding none of the energy Tanaka expects it to lose. The distance between them closes in seconds. Tracers flash past Tanaka's canopy. He jerks the stick back, the Zero shuddering as it reaches the edge of its performance envelope. The American fighter flashes by, close enough that Tanaka sees the pilot's helmet and oxygen mask. The aircraft is massive, armored, confident. Too confident. Tanaka rolls, inverted, and dives, trying to regain separation. The Zero accelerates quickly, but behind him, the American follows, not struggling, not falling away. This is wrong. Tanaka pulls into a hard climbing turn, forcing G's into his body. His vision tightens at the edges. Normally, this maneuver would leave any American fighter gasping below him. The enemy aircraft stays with him, climbs with him, matches him. Brake! Brake! Someone shouts over the radio. A Zero ahead erupts in flame, its wing torn apart by heavy machine gun fire. The explosion is brief, violent, final. There is no parachute. Tanaka levels out, heart hammering. His training screams at him to turn, to fight close, to dance inside the enemy's circle. But instinct older and louder tells him something has changed. These Americans are not flying Wildcats. They are not flying like Americans used to fly. They fight vertically. They attack, climb away, then come back down again with speed and control. They do not linger. They do not get trapped. They choose when to engage and when to leave. Tanaka realizes, with a cold clarity that cuts through the chaos, that the Zero is no longer dictating the fight. The American fighter roars past again, climbing effortlessly into the sun. Tanaka follows for a moment, then stops. His engine strains. The gap widens. The enemy disappears upward, untouched. On the radio, a shaken voice speaks words Tanaka will remember for the rest of his life. This is not the Wildcat, the pilot says. This is a new fighter. Tanaka looks around at the thinning formation of Japanese aircraft, at the empty spaces where friends had been moments before. Whatever this new American plane is, it has arrived fully formed. And it has come to take the sky. The surviving Japanese fighters scatter instinctively, peeling away in pairs and singles, each pilot searching for an escape route through cloud and altitude. The radio, once orderly and disciplined, collapses into fragments half-heard warnings, shouted bearings, voices breaking under strain. Tanaka dives hard, the Zero shuddering as speed builds. Wind screams over the canopy. For a moment, the familiar feeling returns. This is where the Zero still feels alive, light and fast, slicing downward like a blade. But above him, the Americans are already repositioning. They do not chase blindly. They climb, reset, and drop again with terrifying discipline. Each attack is deliberate, each pass is fast. The Japanese pilots have no time to settle into the kind of turning duel they were trained for. Tanaka glances at his fuel gauge, already lower than he expected. He realizes something else, something worse. These American pilots are not afraid of the Zero. For nearly 2 years, fear had been a weapon. American fighters hesitated, broke off, refused to commit once the fight became close and chaotic. Japanese instructors taught their students to exploit that hesitation, to draw the enemy into tightening spirals until skill and maneuverability decided the outcome. But now, the Americans refuse the dance. A dark blue fighter plunges past Tanaka's left wing, guns blazing. He snaps into a turn, expecting the enemy to overshoot. It doesn't. The American pilot pulls up sharply, converting speed into altitude with brutal efficiency. The aircraft's engine does not sputter or complain. It roars, steady and powerful, as if daring gravity to argue. Tanaka tries to follow and immediately knows he cannot. The Zero climbs, yes, but slower now. The airframe trembles. The engine strains. Every extra meter upward feels stolen rather than earned. The American fighter pulls away, climbing straight into the sun. Tanaka breaks off and levels out, chest tight, breath shallow. His training tells him what he is seeing is impossible. His experience tells him it is not. This is not a better Zero. This is something else entirely. Back at the Japanese base later that day, the pilots gather in uneasy silence. Some aircraft are missing. Some pilots do not return. Mechanics stand idle beside empty revetments, already knowing the truth. Tanaka sits on an upturned crate, helmet resting in his lap, sweat drying on his flight suit. Around him, voices speak in low tones, arguments, speculation, disbelief. Too fast. Too strong. He climbed away from me. I hit him. He didn't go down. An intelligence officer arrives with a clipboard and a fixed expression. He listens, writes, asks questions. What did the aircraft look like? How did it fight? How did it escape? Tanaka answers carefully. It did not turn with us, he says. It chose when to fight. It was faster in the climb, faster in the dive, and it absorbed damage. The officer nods slowly. He has already heard this from others. In Tokyo, days later, those reports are read again and again. The language is cautious, formal, but the meaning is unmistakable. A new American carrier fighter has entered combat. Heavier than the Wildcat, faster than expected. Climbing like a Zero, but without the Zero's fragility. The engineers and planners understand the implication immediately. The Mitsubishi A6M had been designed for a specific war short-range engagements. Lightly armed opponents, pilots trained to avoid being hit at all costs. It had never been meant to fight an enemy that could match its climb, exceed its speed, and survive its fire. Across the Pacific, aboard an American aircraft carrier pitching gently with the swell, a very different debrief is taking place. U.S. Navy pilots climb down from their cockpits, grinning, exhausted, alive. The smell of oil and cordite hangs in the air as mechanics swarm the aircraft. Bullet holes are counted, damage is noted and shrugged off. One pilot slaps the side of his fighter affectionately. Well, she handles just fine, he says. They tried to pull us into turns, didn't take the bait. Another laughs. They couldn't climb with us. The American fighter has a name now, one that will soon be spoken with relief by U.S. pilots and dread by their enemies. Hellcat. It was not designed to be elegant, it was designed to win. As more of them arrive in the Pacific, the encounters grow more frequent and more lopsided. Japanese pilots begin reporting the same unsettling pattern. Initial contact, brief exchange, then the Americans climb away untouched, only to return moments later with speed and altitude on their side. The Zero is still deadly in the hands of experts, but expertise no longer guarantees survival. Tanaka writes in his flight notebook that night, his handwriting tight and precise. The enemy has a new fighter. It does not fear us. It chooses the fight. We cannot force it to stay. He closes the book and sits quietly, listening to the distant hum of engines on the airfield. For the first time since he became a fighter pilot, Saburo Tanaka wonders not how to win the next engagement, but whether the sky itself is slipping out of Japan's grasp. The realization spreads quietly at first, carried not by official announcements, but by pilots' voices, by the tone of debriefings, by the way men hesitate before volunteering for the next sortie. The Americans have changed the rules. Weeks pass, and the encounters multiply. Each one follows the same unsettling pattern. Initial contact, a brief flurry of fire. Then the Americans climb away, regroup, and strike again from above. Japanese pilots begin to recognize the shape, even at a distance now, the broad wings, the heavy nose, the confident way it holds altitude. The name circulates in fragments filtered through intelligence channels and overheard radio traffic. Hellcat. It is not graceful. It does not dance. It hunts. Tanaka experiences it again over the Philippine Sea. This time, he sees the tactic clearly. The American fighters arrive high, already holding the advantage. They dive in pairs, firing short, controlled bursts, then pull up sharply before the Japanese can respond. The Zero is designed to punish mistakes. The Hellcat does not make them. Tanaka tries to force a turning engagement, rolling hard, pulling the Zero into a tight spiral. For a moment, the familiar advantage returns. The Zero's wings bite into the air, its nose swinging inside the American's arc. But the Hellcat does not stay. It climbs away again, trading speed for altitude with mechanical certainty. No hesitation, no strain. Tanaka levels out, breathing hard. His engine temperature is climbing. Fuel is burning faster than it should. Every maneuver costs him something the Hellcat seems able to recover effortlessly. He understands then what Japanese engineers and planners had known but hoped would never matter. The Zero was built when Japan expected a short war. Range over armor. Maneuverability over survivability. A fighter meant to escort bombers across vast distances and defeat lightly protected enemies through skill and daring. The Hellcat was built for a long war. It carries armor plate behind the pilot's seat, self-sealing fuel tanks, redundant systems. It can take hits that would shred a Zero instantly and keep flying. And beneath its blunt cowling is an engine of staggering power, designed not just to fly, but to dominate altitude and energy. The Americans have learned. They have studied the Zero's strengths and refused to play to them. They fight in the vertical now, boom and zoom, climb and dive, never lingering long enough to be trapped. Instructors back in Japan struggle to adapt training. They tell pilots to attack from above, to conserve energy, to avoid prolonged turning fights. But these lessons come too late, and the reality in the cockpit is unforgiving. The Zero cannot chase what it cannot catch. Losses mount. Veteran pilots disappear from the roster, one by one. Men who survived China, Pearl Harbor, the early Pacific battles, gone in seconds under heavy machine gun fire they never even saw coming. Tanaka survives through caution and luck. He learns to disengage early, to break off before the Hellcats return from above. But each retreat feels like a small defeat, a concession he never expected to make. The Americans, meanwhile, grow more confident with every encounter. They trust their aircraft, they trust their tactics, they trust that even if they make a mistake, the Hellcat will give them a second chance. Japanese pilots do not have that luxury. And one afternoon, after another bruising engagement, Tanaka lands with fuel fumes in his tanks and sweat soaked through his uniform. He climbs down slowly, legs unsteady, and watches his ground crew examine his aircraft. There are bullet holes in the wings, shrapnel scars along the fuselage. Had any of them struck the fuel tank directly, he would not be standing here. He looks down the flight line. Fewer aircraft, fewer pilots. The spaces between revetments seem wider now. In the ready room that evening, no one boasts, no one laughs. Maps are marked with red grease pencil, showing American carrier groups advancing steadily westward. The Hellcats are always there now. Tanaka stares at the map and understands the larger truth behind the encounters in the sky. This is no longer a contest of individual skill. It is a contest of systems, of industry, of training pipelines that replace losses faster than they occur, of machines designed not for brilliance, but for endurance. The Zero had given Japan air superiority at the war's beginning. The Hellcat is taking it away methodically, relentlessly, without drama. Outside, engines start for the next mission. The sound is familiar, comforting, and suddenly fragile. Tanaka stands, picks up his helmet, and walks toward the aircraft once more. He does not wonder what the enemy will do this time. He already knows. By mid-1944, the change is no longer subtle. The Pacific sky, once a domain Japanese pilots entered with confidence bordering on arrogance, has become hostile territory. American carrier groups move with impunity now, their flight decks cycling squadrons of Hellcats from dawn to dusk. For Tanaka, the warning signs arrive before the engines even start. Briefings are shorter. Objectives are narrower. Escort missions are abandoned halfway to target. Fuel margins are razor thin. The unspoken truth hangs in the air. Survival matters more than victory. On June 19, 1944, Tanaka launches into the blue morning sky with dozens of others, climbing to meet an incoming American force near the Mariana Islands. The radio is alive with calls, bearings, altitudes, urgency creeping into every transmission. Then the sky fills with American fighters. They are everywhere, high, organized, patient. Hellcats hold altitude like guardians, circling above the formation while others dive, attack, and climb away again. There is no chaos, no desperate improvisation. This is a system in motion. Tanaka tries to climb, tries to gain even a small advantage before contact. The Zero responds, but not fast enough. Hellcats slide into position above him with ease. A pair dives past, guns flashing. Tanaka breaks hard right, feeling the familiar strain in his chest as G-forces build. His aircraft turns beautifully, carving a tight arc through the air. No one follows. The Americans let him go. Seconds later, they return from above. A Zero explodes ahead of him, fuel igniting instantly. The fireball vanishes as quickly as it appears, leaving nothing but smoke and falling debris. Tanaka recognizes the tail number. He had shared tea with that pilot the night before. There is no time to think. Tracers rake past his canopy. He dives, pulls up, dives again, trying to spoil the Americans' firing solution. The Hellcats are relentless, but not reckless. They disengage the moment the shot is not perfect. Tanaka realizes, with growing dread, that the Americans are not trying to win individual dogfights. They are trying to erase the Japanese air arm entirely. By the time Tanaka breaks away, the sky is littered with smoke trails and parachutes far fewer than the number of aircraft destroyed. The ocean waits below, indifferent. When he lands hours later, the scale of the disaster becomes clear. Aircraft missing, pilots gone, replacement pilots, silent and pale, staring at a reality they were never trained to face. Later, historians will give the battle a name, the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. But in that moment, there is no humor in it, only exhaustion, shock, and a crushing sense of inevitability. The Hellcat has done exactly what it was designed to do. It has taken inexperienced American pilots and given them the tools to defeat experienced Japanese ones. It has turned training and discipline into decisive advantages. It has shifted the balance of the war in the air beyond recovery. Tanaka sits alone that night, listening to distant artillery and the low murmur of mechanics working under floodlights. He thinks back to the first time he saw the Hellcat climbing toward him. Impossibly fast, impossibly confident. He had thought it was a new Zero. Now he understands the truth. It was never meant to be like the Zero. It was meant to replace it. The war will go on. There will be more missions, fewer veterans, younger pilots climbing into cockpits with eyes too wide and hands too tight on the controls. But the outcome in the sky has already been decided. The Americans own the altitude. They choose the fight. And the Hellcat, heavy, powerful, unforgiving, has made sure of it. Tanaka closes his eyes, knowing that tomorrow the engines will start again, and the sky will not be waiting for him.